Chapter 37, James's Gift. It was a strange little group that walked into the Met's Drawings and Prints Gallery late that afternoon to see the newly reunited Dürer miniatures, escorted by a museum guard who had greeted them at a side entrance so that they could avoid the crowds. Carl, James, with Marvin tucked securely under his jacket cuff, having sworn to Mama and Papa that he wouldn't budge from that position for the entire outing, and Mr. and Mrs. Pompaday, pushing William in his stroller, waiting for Christina at the front of the exhibit. Though she'd heard only the minimal details of the drawing's recovery, Mrs. Pompaday could barely contain her pride over her son's involvement, even in what she imagined was an ancillary fashion. She kept patting James's back importantly and looking around for reporters. "I wonder if anyone will interview you, James. They certainly ought to. Of course, once this business with the museum is behind you, I expect you to get back to work on your own pictures. That's where the real opportunity is. 4,000 from the Mortons. Just think what other people will pay for your extraordinary drawings." Mr. Pompaday harumphed in agreement. "I've got a couple of partners at work who might be interested. Quite a way to build your college fund there, James." Marvin winced, while James' freckled cheeks turned to dark pink. "I don't know if I'm going to keep drawing those little pictures," he said. "They take a lot of time." "What do you mean?" his mother cried. "They're marvelous. You can't stop, James. Why, that's your gift." "I know, but I was thinking I could do bigger drawings." No, his mother protested. "It's their little size that makes them so delightful." Marvin groaned inwardly. How would he and James ever stop this charade? He couldn't go on forging pictures. Just look at the trouble this had gotten them into already, even if it had led to the return of the stolen drawings. Carl interrupted them. "Maybe he wants to take a break from it for a while. All artists need that occasionally." "Oh, I don't think so," Mrs. Pompaday began. "My friends," Christina cried happily, appearing in the doorway. After the necessary introductions, "You have a remarkable son," she told Mrs. Pompaday, who nodded smugly. Christina led them through the crush of visitors to the third room, where the Dürer's virtue drawings were prominently displayed along one wall. Marvin clung to James's wrist and peered up, trying to see them better. Matted and framed, they were imposing despite their tiny size. Seeing them together somehow made you look at each drawing more closely, Marvin thought, instinctively comparing the four figures. Fortitude looked more determined and courageous, Justice both sterner and sadder alongside her sisters. They were breathtaking. Nobody can draw like Dürer, Marvin thought, not even me. He suddenly and purely hoped that he wouldn't have to copy any more drawings. He was tired of it. He wanted to make something of his own. "I've noticed details I never even saw before," Christina said excitedly. "The line of Prudence's jaw, the way Justice's hand rests there. It's as if the drawings speak to one another." Carl smiled at her. "They were meant to hang together," he said. "You can tell." "They certainly make a nice arrangement," Mrs. Pompaday added, not to be outdone. "James, you should consider doing a group of miniatures just like this. It would be fetching, really." She turned to Christina. "He has a gift, you know," she confided. "Oh, I know," Christina said, smiling at James. "Oh, he does have a gift," Marvin wanted to say. "It's just not what you think it is." "This exhibit is going to bring new attention to Dürer," Christina continued. "I can feel it. Museum admissions today are at a record high already. We've had dozens of calls from the media. The return of the drawings is getting international news coverage. I think Dürer may finally get the interest he deserves." As the others continued to admire the drawings, James tugged her aside. "What about Denny?" he asked, anxiously. "Do the police know where he is?" Christina shook her head. "They're watching the airports in Germany, but nothing yet." "Do you think they'll catch him?" Christina pursed her lips. "I don't know, James." "I hope they don't," James said. "I like Denny." "Me too," Christina sighed. James watched her soberly. "Do you think he's mad at me?" he asked. "Oh, no, James, I don't think so," she answered firmly. "I think that whatever he is, he must be relieved in a way. Even though things didn't turn out as he'd planned, at least it's over." She tilted her head, looking at the four miniatures. "It's like when you tell a lie, and then you have to tell more lies because of it to cover it up. Have you ever done that? And even if it's horrible and embarrassing to be caught, it's also a relief at some level, you know? Because then you can stop doing this thing you wished you'd never done in the first place. James looked at her. Yeah, I know what you mean, he said finally. James knew he was thinking about his own drawings. It was so complicated and exhausting to keep up the ruse of James's artistic genius. And when would it end? So, Christina continued, I think Denny is probably grateful to you. Or maybe he isn't right now, but he will be. Will we ever see him again? Christina paused. I don't know. He committed a serious crime. If he shows up here in the States, he will go to jail. And I know the FBI agents have been talking to the German police to see if they can link him to the other thefts. James bit his lip. I wish he didn't have to go to jail. I know, Christina said softly. Well, this is a very impressive exhibit, Mrs. Pompaday interjected, coming to their side. But we've made reservations at a little French place on the Upper West Side, and we really should be going. It was nice to meet you, Miss Balcony. And you, Christina said. Thank you for loaning me your wonderful son. Oh my, I was glad for him to have lessons with you. It's been a very special opportunity for James. Christina smiled quizzically. Oh, I don't think there's much that I could teach James. She escorted them to the museum exit, and as Mr. and Mrs. Pompaday navigated the long flight of stairs with William's stroller, she turned to Carl. Thank you, she said. Thank you for all of your help. It was really lovely getting to know you two. Won't we see you again? James asked, looking crushed. Marvin felt a similar wave of disappointment. He hadn't even considered that they'd be saying goodbye to Christina. Oh, well, of course, Christina said. Any time you like. I hope you'll keep in touch. She rested her hand on Carl's arm. He looked at her, and Marvin saw his face turn the same shade of pink that James's did when he was embarrassed about something. Maybe we could get a cup of coffee sometime? He asked hesitantly. Christina smiled. Absolutely. I'd like that. Good, I'll call you, Carl said over his shoulder, ushering James down the steps after the Pompadays. When they reached the sidewalk, he bent and kissed the top of James's head. I love you, buddy. Yeah, Dad, James said. You too. We'll do something on Wednesday, okay? Mrs. Pompaday interrupted. We'll see, Carl. James may need that time to work on a few new pieces. James squirmed while Carl looked at him sympathetically. Okay, we'll talk later, he said. He ruffled James's hair, then headed off down the sidewalk. At the curb, Mr. Pompaday hailed a cab. William began to howl. He arched his back in protest, kicking the footrest of the stroller. Oh, sweetheart, Mrs. Pompaday crooned. Yes, yes, I know you're hungry. We're going now. She unstrapped him from the seat and thrust him into Mr. Pompaday's arms, calling, James, put a stroller in the trunk, will you? As James folded the stroller and handed it to the cabbie, Marvin felt him hesitate. It was only for a second, but in that fraction of time, Marvin went rigid. No, James, he thought, sensing what was about to happen even before he consciously understood it. He saw James's right hand reach toward the open trunk at the exact same moment that the cabbie slammed the trunk closed. There was a sickening, thwarted clunk as the metal trunk crashed down on something that wasn't meant to be there, and an anguished cry. James stumbled backward, sobbing in pain, holding his right hand. No, no, James thought. The word pounded in his head as he gripped James's other wrist. James! Mrs. Pompaday screamed.